Hello and welcome to Lesson 1 in 21st Century Legal Services from the Suffolk University Law School Legal Innovation and Technology Certificate Program. I'm your instructor for this course. My name is Jordan Furlong, and the lesson today is called the Course Overview. This is kind of the equivalent of that great first class in university, which I'm sure we all kind of remember. You show up for the first day of class and the prof comes in and introduces him or herself and gives you the syllabus for the course and talks for about 10 minutes about what we're going to do and then says, y'all can go home early. I'm going to be doing all of that except for the going home early part. This lesson is 30 minutes long, just like all the others. But in this particular opening session, I'd like to kind of set out for you what I'm hoping to accomplish with this course, what I'm hoping to deliver to you, and to kind of outline and summarize what is ahead of us in the 19 lessons that will follow this one. I'll be breaking down this lesson, as I'll be breaking down all lessons, into 3 parts, not especially equal. First of all, I'm going to kind of run through the outline of the course, set out more or less what I have in mind for it, and give you a brief summary and description of what each lesson or each group of lessons is going to address. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the assumptions and expectations that I have and that I'm making about this course. And then finally close with some thoughts for you about my availability to you over the course of this entire session and any other information that might be useful to you to take with you during and after this course. So why don't we start right off the bat by talking about what are we doing here? What is this? What is this course? This course is essentially, it's a primer on the new legal services marketplace that has emerged here within North America. I am primarily looking at the North American market for this course, although a lot of what I say I think will have application to other jurisdictions as well. And talking about the just enormous changes that have taken place in this market over the last 10 to 12 to 15 years, and the even more, I think, stunning changes that will take place in the years to come. And then to talk about how can we, and when I say we, I really mean you, help to build a sustainable enterprise within that market. And that enterprise will depend entirely on where you are based. You might be in a law firm, a traditional incumbent member of the legal marketplace. You might be on the client side, in an in-house counsel in a corporation or a department. You might be one of these new alternative legal services providers we'll be talking about extensively throughout the course. But you may have any number of other roles within legal education or the courts or just kind of part of the overall population of players and participants in the market. And my hope is to kind of lay out for you what has happened to this market over the last several years, what's going to happen to it in the years to come, and what we can do about it. If you want to use kind of a medical analogy, I think you'll find this course is essentially 1/3 diagnosis of what's going on, 1/3 prognosis of what this means and what we can expect going down the road, and 1/3 a course of action, the remedies or recommendations I would make as a result of the previous 2. So that's what this is. Next question, I guess, is who are you taking this course? And I will tell you, I don't know precisely right now when I'm recording this who exactly you are, because I am creating this course in advance of the course's actual debut. So I've got a pretty good sense of the general population and the profile of people who will be taking it. But at the moment, all I really know about you is that you are enrolled in the Suffolk University Law School's Legal Innovation and Technology Certificate Program. So from this, I work on the assumption that you are interested in the law, in innovation and technology, which is great. I have some further assumptions about the people taking this course, which I'll get to a few slides down the road. You may also reasonably be wondering, who am I? Who's this guy on the screen talking to me? I am a legal market analyst. And you may say to yourself, what does that mean? That sounds like a term someone just made up. And that's actually pretty much what it is. Legal market analyst is a term I kind of came up with to describe what I do and the kind of services that I provide to the market generally. And what I essentially try to do truly is analyze the market. Take a look at the entire market, the environment, the context for the purchase and sale of legal services, primarily on the corporate institutional side of the market, but I have a strong interest on the consumer and individual side as well. I try to forecast what's going on in the market and what's coming down the road. I do some consulting to law firms and other legal organizations. I'm a speaker, and I speak quite frequently to any number of groups. I've been doing this for several years now. I've written a book called Law is a Buyer's Market, and you will, of course, have already seen this because it's in the syllabus. And I was very briefly a lawyer, and I say very briefly. But I worked very briefly as a lawyer, long enough to know that the legal profession was not for me, and I was not for the legal profession, or at the very least for the private practice of law. And having spent some time in the private practice of law, I then moved into legal journalism, and I spent about 15 years in that line of work, including about 12 years as the editor of 3 leading periodicals for the legal profession here in Canada, where I'm based, before embarking on this particular line of work, which I'm involved in right now. So that's the absolute basics about you, me, and why we're here. Now I just want to give you a very brief overview of what we're going to be talking about during this course. These are not like really highly silo-wized distinctions I'm making. The lessons do tend to kind of build on each other, and they refer back and forth to each other. But what I can say is this: lesson 2, coming up after this one, as well as the lessons that follow it up to number 5, essentially is about how the legal market has changed, why it has changed, and what impact this has had on all the players in the market, but especially on law firms. My focus and my specialty is on law firms, and what has happened over the last few years and what will continue to happen to law firms is a simply extraordinary and unprecedented period of transformation. It's really exciting. It's a little unnerving if you're actually inside of it, which you may be at the moment, but it's just an amazing period of time, and I want to talk about why we're going through it and what it all means. Then for lessons 6 to 9, especially lessons 7 to 9, we're going to be talking about strategy, what that means in the context of the legal market, and what kind of strategic visions legal providers can have regarding the markets they want to be involved in, the clients they would like to serve, the competitors up against which they are arrayed, and the culture of the organization or firm or company that they're building. Another little mini arc of 3 lessons follows that one. In 10 to 12, we're going to dig into what I might call the nuts and bolts of modern, or maybe a little more futuristic law firms. We're going to be looking at legal operations, the how of the production and delivery of legal services, the increasingly important role of data and analytics, and how we're going to price all of these services in the market circumstances to come. Then for lessons 13 and 16, we're going to look at people, and we're going to look at skills and talents, especially for the new generation of lawyers coming up, and we have a whole section devoted to millennials and how millennials can and should be integrated into the legal market, as well as the boomer generation moving on out of this profession, and we'll be talking a little bit about succession planning and management as well. Finally, in lessons 17 to 20, we're going to try to look forward a little bit. We're going to talk about the increasingly important role of diversity in legal services, research and development, kind of a new and kind of a crazy idea to be talking about in the law, but there you have it. We will be looking at compensation for lawyers, which I sometimes like to call the third rail of law firm management, because no one wants to touch it, because if you touch it, down you go. And then we're going to close with some of my thoughts about change management and leadership, which for my money really kind of encapsulate and summarize everything we've talked about, because this is how we actually make these changes happen. This is how we bring them about. You will find that there are questions throughout this entire series of lessons. There will be discussion questions, 1 or 2 of these, which you can really access at any point, but they're meant to be accessed and talked about at the end of each lesson. They are meant to be thought-provoking. They are meant to really sit down and make you think about what your position is and what your view and experience perspective is on all of this. And there'll be opportunities for you to share your thoughts about these discussion questions and these answers in a general online community, and especially to read other people who are enrolled in this course, read their assessments and experiences as well, and to exchange your ideas, which I think is really important. And there's also going to be questions interspersed throughout each of these videos. There are 2 breaks within each video. This is kind of mandated by the format of this entire certificate program. The idea being essentially that the program administrators in Suffolk University Law School need to make sure that you're not just going to, fast forward, tempting as it is to fast forward through what I have to say, not just fast forwarding through this stuff and ticking off the boxes. So these 2 sets of questions are essentially just kind of, I don't want to call them reading comprehension, but it's just little checkpoints to make sure that, you've actually been listening to and noted what I've been talking about in the previous period of time. They're not difficult. They're not meant to be difficult, but they are meant mostly just to be kind of brief stopping points, checkpoints, to get a sense of what has gone up to this point. So what kind of assumptions and expectations have I made and do I have for this course? Well, let's start with my assumptions about you. I've mentioned earlier that I don't have a specific sense of exactly who you are taking this, not just my course here, but this entire certificate program. But I'm assuming, not unreasonably, you've got anywhere from at least 2 to 3 years experience within the legal services market. Quite probably longer than that, but to me that's kind of the minimum amount I'm figuring on. And again, that could be anywhere. It could be in a law firm, it could be in-house, it could be you're you're a new technology provider or a new kind of legal services platform. But what I'm assuming over the course of my lessons, not just today, but throughout all 20 of these segments, is that you have been around the legal market long enough to get a sense of how it works, how it doesn't work, how it could certainly work better. You've got a bit of a feel for it. So a lot of my assessments and my advice to you is going to be premised on this idea that you will have at least some familiarity and hopefully an extensive amount of familiarity. Now, if in fact you are just brand new, right? You've just entered the profession or you're a law student, not really a problem. I don't think there's anything in the lessons to come which will be completely foreign to you. And honestly, the earlier you're able to access some of this information and perspectives, I think the better. So all to the good. You might be a lawyer. You might not be a lawyer. That's perfectly fine with me. Unlike some people in the legal profession, I am perfectly fine with people who don't happen to have JDs attached to their name. But I do go on the assumption that you, like me, recognize to a certain extent that the way we have been approaching the delivery of legal services, the way we have constructed and regulated and envisioned the market for legal services has been too narrow. We live in a world that envisions a lawyer-only legal market, a lawyer-only approach to the buying and the selling of legal services. It is foundationally clear to me that whatever the merits of that approach in years past, it's not going to work in the years to come. And I'm kind of hoping that this will be something that you share as well. I take pains at this point because if in fact you are a lawyer and you've spent time, especially in a law firm, and you start to kind of absorb, the culture and the thinking of law firms after a certain amount of time, it may sometimes feel a little odd to think that people who aren't lawyers can actually have value that can deliver to law firms, to legal services providers, and ultimately to clients, to the end users of the services that the market is meant to generate. So that is kind of an assumption I make as well, that we have a bit of a shared perspective on that. That may or may not be an accurate assumption, but I am kind of hoping that by the end of this course, that is a perspective that if you don't fully share it, you will at least have gotten the best argument in favor of it. And the last thing I'm assuming here is that you actually want to play. You don't just see that there's change taking place. You don't just want to know about this change. You want to be part of the process of leading that change. You want to help to shape this market, which is in a very dynamic state at this point in time. What I say here is that I think you're a change agent. If you're not right now, I think you soon will be, or that you want to be. Because honestly, if you're taking this course, this has to be something where you have an appetite or an interest in seeing things done differently and done better. The thing about the legal services market is that it is in a very fluid state right now. completely unrecognizable to something like 15, 20 years ago when everything was static and stuck and frozen. And speaking as someone who was, looking at and reading about and talking about the legal market at that time, where we are today seems almost like science fiction. It's amazing to think we could have gotten as far as we have, and it's great. It is a very fluid, dynamic time. Anything can happen in the legal marketplace right now. But just because all these positive developments are taking place doesn't necessarily mean they're going to continue to be positive or that they'll naturally be positive. A person much wiser than me once observed that the thing about revolutions is that they don't always end up in the place that the initial revolutionaries thought they would wind up, right? Good outcomes, a better legal market is not going to happen just automatically. We can't just sort of sit back and hope and wait to see, oh, well, maybe it'll come along any day now. So my assumption, the final one I have to make here, is that you are, again, not just interested in these changes. You don't just want to be on top of these changes and know what's going on, but you want to help be in charge of them and mold them and bring us all to a better place than we are right now. That's certainly the commitment I've made to my time in the legal market, and I'm pretty sure it's one that you share as well. So those are my assumptions about you and this course. I should probably talk a little bit about my expectations for your participation and your engagement in the course as well. I kind of assume, like anybody who's instructing any kind of a course, that you will do the readings. I think this is something, since the first Greek philosophers had their seminars in Athens in the open air, I'm sure there was always a kind of assumption you've done the readings, right? And the thing of it is that what I've put into the syllabus in terms of what I think I would recommend and would like you to read for each of these lessons, it is there because there's so much good information, useful perspective, not just in terms of the information that is communicated within these articles and items, but because the people who are delivering these insights are by and large experts themselves, specialists. They are pioneers and visionaries in the changing legal market as well. And I would like to kind of share them with you and open up for you on your horizon, to the extent that that horizon is not already open, which I'm sure it probably is, but just to kind of give you the sense of the constellation of expertise and knowledge and insight that's available. Having said all of that, none of these videos that you're about to see presuppose that you've read anything in the syllabus. If you read nothing at all that I've recommended, including the book, then you could probably get through these videos just fine. Probably shouldn't say that, but again, this isn't a law school course, right? I'm not marking you, I'm not grading you. I'm going in the assumption that you have an interest in this and you'll read this kind of information. But just so you know, if you're sitting down to watch a video and you haven't read anything in the syllabus, it's not fatal, but I do think what's in the syllabus would be a very useful complement and an additional building out from the information I'm hoping to share with you. What I am really hoping, though, is that when we get to these discussion questions at the end, right? I'm not talking about the little reading comprehension ones that break these lessons up, but the discussion questions at the end that you share online and you engage with, I really want you to dig into those if you can, because everybody's perspective on this is going to be different, and everybody's experience in the market up to this point is going to be different. And the more that we can bring these perspectives and experiences into the general conversation, and the wider we can cast this net of normalization, I guess you might call it, where we're talking about these issues and we're exploring these opportunities more and more, we're going to accelerate that process of change in an upward positive direction. So I'm really kind of hoping that the one thing you do is you really dig your teeth into into the discussion questions and have conversations with other fellow travelers, other change agents who are enrolled in this course as well. And like I said before, I'm really kind of hoping that whatever comes out of this course, by the time we're done, that you will be able to, and not just this course, but the entire certificate program, that you will be able to take all this information, all these perspectives, and move this market in the direction it needs to go, which, as I say, is more upwards, broader access, better provision of services, more satisfied clients, and more satisfied providers of legal services. So those are my assumptions and expectations for you. You, I'm sure, have certain assumptions about and expectations of me. I think the first and most important expectation that you have of me is that I know what I'm talking about, which would be nice, all things considered. It would be nice if the information I was giving you was accurate and was timely and was useful and actionable. In terms of my ability to persuade you on that point, well, I guess the lessons will tell that tale or not. But just to give you a bit of a sense, I've been a member of the profession now for coming up in about 25 years. I have been in the full-time business of analyzing the legal market, understanding it, really sort of reading all the tea leaves, talking to everybody I can in the market and getting a sense of what's going on. That's at least 20 years, and I have been a full-time writer, speaker, and consultant about it for the last 10. My sense is that I've got a pretty good idea about what's going on in the market, and I've had enough other people tell me, and enough other people who've asked me to come and speak to them about it, that I feel relatively confident that I'm on the right track with all this. I'm not trying to be unduly modest about this whole thing, but just to let you know, the perspectives I give you, I'm confident about. I feel pretty strongly secure that the assessments I'm making are the correct ones. But, and I need hardly say this, especially if you're a lawyer, you will of course analyze and assess whatever I have to say. And you may accept some of it and you may reject some of it, and that's fine as well. One of my favorite phrases, and you're going to hear this scattered, I'm sure, throughout the entire course, is your mileage may vary, right? By which I essentially mean you will get more value out of some of the stuff than others. You will agree with me about certain things more than others, and that's totally fine. But the promise I make to you as part of the, meeting your expectations of me is that I'm giving you my very best analysis, my very best sense of what's going on in the market, and that the information I'm going to give you is reliable, it is actionable, and it's worth using as a basis for your own work in this area. I am certainly going to try to make this course very informative, practical. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about 1/3 course of action and remedies. Maybe it's a bit more than that. Maybe it's about, coming up on about 40%. But the idea here is I want to give you information you can work with and you can do something with. I'd like it to be interesting, obviously, hope it is. I am aiming absolutely for it to be as up-to-date as I can manage it. Now, this course is being recorded in early 2018. So in the unlikely event that you're sitting here in, the summer of 2025, reviewing this course for anything other than historical purposes or a few laughs, obviously, things will have changed. Things probably will have changed extensively in that time. But I think it's useful to set down kind of a date marker here so you have a sense of, as of early 2018, this is how I see the world. And I'm going to try to make it engaging so that, sitting and looking at me for 30 minutes 20 times in a row is not going to be, too painful, right? I'm not suggesting you binge watch me. I don't think sitting down with a bowl of popcorn and 10 hours of me is the best way to spend your time. But I will at least try to make the time that we do spend together, fairly interesting and hopefully a little bit enjoyable. The bottom line here for me is the goal for me, my objective, and again, my promise to you, when this course is done, 20 lessons down the road, you will know as well as anybody can know what has happened to the market for legal services. The market that for many people they entered and it's unrecognizable to them today. I want to be able to explain to you as best I can what happened, why it happened to us, why it's going to continue happening in any number of different ways, and most importantly, what can you do about it now? This is all about actionability. This is about laying the groundwork for being able to be that kind of change agent in the market. All the other courses within this certificate program here at Suffolk Law School are going to be really digging into the nuts and the bolts and the how-to of so many important things like project management and artificial intelligence and real forward thinking in terms of legal services delivery. What I really want to do here is lay that groundwork so that when you go on to tackle all these other issues, you will have as clear and accurate a sense of the big picture as you can. That's what I'm aiming to do, and I really hope that by the end of the course, that is exactly what we've managed.